So one day after Justice Arthur Engoron rules against Donald Trump on the 5 motions for directed verdict that Trump filed in the New York Attorney General civil fraud case, and Engoron said that Donald Trump's experts, who he paid about $1 million or more with political action committee money, that they had absolutely no credibility. So Donald Trump jumps on his social media platform and starts attacking Justice Arthur Engoron's family. That's Donald Trump's move. Attack the family members. But here, Donald Trump cites George Santos, who cites Lauren Loomer about Justice Arthur Engoron's family, and it's just completely false stuff over and over again. And so an individual who Lauren Loomer and then George Santos and then Donald Trump identified as Justice Arthur Engoron's son being in the courtroom, guess what? Was not Justice Arthur Engoron's son. You want to know who he was? He was a writer for the New York Post who wrote an article saying, "Stop posting about me, Donald Trump. I'm not Justice Arthur Engoron's son." And what did Donald Trump do? Started posting about Justice Arthur Engoron's wife with a account that is not Justice Arthur Engoron's wife's account, just attacking a random account that happens to have the same name as Justice Arthur Engoron's wife, but is not Justice Arthur Engoron's wife. This is what they are doing, and this is not normal, folks. Let's just dig into it right here. This is on Donald Trump's social media platform. By the way, I want to compare what Trump's doing to what President Biden's doing. We're going to have a YouTube cleanser here for you, if you will, so you can compare and contrast, but there's really no comparison. But take a look at what Donald Trump posted here. Donald Trump's posting George Santos. Someone with 91 indictments, 91 charges is reposting someone with about 23. And here's what George Santos writes. Laura Loomer's findings are significant, and I have flagged them for my colleagues on the Oversight Committee to investigate further and determine if there's any misconduct that would result in a monetary benefit to the judge's son. Let me be clear that the MAGA Republicans, that today's Republican Party, the Republican Party's dead, so it's basically MAGA, they want to give the nuclear codes to someone who is reposting George freaking Santos right now, okay? Now, setting aside what the content is, you don't repost George Santos. Could you imagine for a moment if President Biden reposted George Santos as an authority on anything? But sure enough, George Santos does what George Santos does. He lies, and so does Laura Loomer. Here's what Laura Loomer said. Judge Arthur Engoron has made the Trump trial a family affair and potentially has reserved seats for his son, Ian Engoron, who may be financially benefiting from the Trump trial via his position at a Democratic activist law firm in New York City and his father's position as the judge overseeing the Trump trial in New York. During my investigation into the communist New York City judge Arthur Engoron, I discovered that he had 4 children, and here's his son, Ian Engoron. But let's take a look at that. There's an arrow pointing to somebody there, and that's who Lauren Loomer and George Santos and Donald Trump is saying is Justice Arthur Engoron's son. Pause for 1 second. Why are you attacking the judge's son? How pathetic can you be? Why are you attacking the judge's principal law clerk? How pathetic can you be? Why are you attacking the judge's wife? How pathetic can you be? Maybe you stick to the facts and try to assert legitimate defenses. Who behaves like this? But let's get into how we know that that is not Justice Arthur Engoron's son. Because it's someone by the name of Ben Kochman. And Ben Kochman wrote, Donald Trump keeps reposting a photo of a bearded man at his civil trial. He's signal-boosted claims that the guy is the son of the judge and that this somehow is a scandal. There's just one problem. That guy in the photo is me. Here's the New York Post article from the writer from the New York Post who's there at trial every day. Not because he's Justice Arthur Engoron's son, but because he's writing about the trial. And here's what the individual wrote. It's me, Don. Post reporter falsely tagged as Judge Engoron's son at Trump's trial. Then this article goes on to say that Trump keeps sharing a photo on social media featuring a bright red arrow pointing at the head of a bearded man at his civil fraud trial, claiming he is the son of the judge. The New York Post can now confirm that this pictured, bespectacled, well-groomed target is not the kin of Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron. I should know. I'm the guy. Trump, 77, on Tuesday, yet again signal boosted the photo of me sitting a few rows into the court gallery, along with an article by a fringe right activist inexplicably claiming Engoron's son is financially benefiting from being given a prominent seat at the trial. The post went out to Trump's 6.52 million followers on the app Truth Social. It was the second time within a month that Donald Trump shared the photo of me and a screenshot of the November 7th article from Laura Loomer, an anti-Muslim activist who once described Islam as a cancer and has been banned from social media sites in the past. That's how Donald Trump is spending his day, and that is who is leading the Republican Party right now. How shameful can you be? America, wake up. And Donald Trump then, right after that, you know who he attacks? Judge Engoron's wife. You know what he does? Basically the same thing. There's some old Twitter account or X account that has the name of Judge Engoron's wife. Judge Engoron's wife does not have Twitter, does not have X. That is not her account. She's previously put statements out as a result of these heinous attacks on her through the administrative services of the New York court, confirming that she doesn't even have an X account or Twitter account at all. But that doesn't stop Donald Trump. Here are his posts. Wife of New York judge in civil case against Trump has been attacking ex-president on social media. He puts it in quotes because he's a coward. And he puts this in quotes, again, quoting people who have been debunked who are defaming Judge Engoron's wife. And Trump goes, Judge Engoron's wife has been tweeting anti-Trump memes throughout the trial. No, she hasn't been. That is a complete and utter lie. And then posting things from this random X account or Twitter account as a way to attack Judge Engoron's wife so people engage in stochastic terrorism against him and his family and his son for things that aren't true at all. You don't get more despicable and weird and deranged than that behavior. I've never seen that in my career as a lawyer, and I've spoke to people who have been lawyers for far longer than me. This behavior does not exist in the American legal system unless it's people who are behind bars for a very long period of time for their behavior. Yet this disgusting conduct is now embodied in somebody who is leading the Republican Party. Shameful. And legacy media is complicit in this. And by the way, he spent the rest of the day whining, oh, pity me, wow, they weaponized this, they weaponized that, they're coming after me. Oh, and by the way, when the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection and was an officer and was therefore disqualified, what does he do? He runs and goes, breaking news, Colorado just removed me from the ballot. Every opportunity he has to try to grift, he will through his leadership political action committee that's paid Alina Habba like $3.5 million, that's paid legal fees of anywhere from $60 million to $150 million for his own personal lawsuits having nothing to do with politics at all, whether it's the New York Attorney General civil fraud case, whether it's another case where he was found liable for sexual abuse or rape and defamation. This is how Donald Trump is spending his political action committee money. It is absolutely disgusting. Now, I just want to do a contrast. I want to do a comparison. Let's take a look at what was President Biden doing today. By the way, if President Biden posted any of that, President Biden did that just once, I wouldn't support him. Just one post. For all of the things I think that President Biden's done great, if he sent one post that even slightly resembled what Donald Trump was posting, I'm out. Because you have to have a modicum of standards. Yet, for MAGA Republicans, this cosplay WWE dystopian American carnage like fascism is their way of life. Misery wants company, and these miserable MAGA Republicans want to try to have all of us have that same miserableness that they apparently suffer from. Despicable. Anyway, let's show what President Biden's talking about. He goes, my administration filed a $140 million penalty against Southwest Airlines for its 2022 holiday meltdown. This is on top of the $600 million that the United States Department of Transportation secured in refunds for passengers who faced disruptions. Taxpayers kept airlines afloat during COVID-19. They should get a better deal. President Biden writes, my administration launched the first national law enforcement accountability database, so federal law enforcement misconduct records will be available to agencies considering hiring them. It's a promise kept and a measure of what's necessary to begin to heal our nation's soul. President Biden writes, imagine trying for decades to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid instead of working with us to lower the costs of insulin and prescription drugs. That's congressional Republicans. And think about everyone who's benefiting right now, and you may be benefiting as well, from President Biden's direct policies that reduce the cost of insulin to under $35 a month, in addition to lowering the cost of other prescription drug prices as well, in addition to other great measures within the Inflation Reduction Act. Goes on to say, after the Philly farm mount fire, I told city officials I would do everything I could to bring Ladder 1 back into service. As of this week, the neighborhood once again has a ladder company on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to keep them safe. I kept my promise. President Biden writes, instead of fighting to lower costs for families, Republicans in Congress are fighting to increase profits for big pharma. They're fighting to lower taxes for the wealthy and corporations, and they're fighting to cut Medicare and Social Security. That's just wrong. And President Biden says, I'm a capitalist. I have no problem with companies making reasonable profits, but not on the backs of seniors and hard-working families. That's how President Biden is spending his time. And you see what Donald Trump is doing and spending his time. And by the way, I've said this before when it comes to, remember 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was it, where these MAGA Republicans, they released a small fraction of the security footage from the Capitol building that had not been released before, even though it was potentially posed a national security threat, but they released it. And then they said that one of the insurrectionists was actually a Fed, and this was a Fed insurrection. And then they said, look, they're holding up a badge. And it was an insurrectionist who was found guilty, who was holding up a vape, not a badge. Then they just move on to the next lie, next lie, next lie. Oh, that was Justice Arthur Engoron's wife on Twitter or X on social media. No, it isn't, but they just say it. Oh, that's Justice Arthur Engoron's son in the courtroom. No, it isn't. They just say it. And then they have no shame. They just move on to the next one. And their base believes that as true, and then they move on. Legacy media doesn't check them. Right-wing media amplifies it. And that's a cycle that we're in, but we're breaking the cycle together, folks, here at the MeidasTouch Network, and you as part of the Meidas Mighty. Let's get out the facts. Let's get out the data. Let's go. Heading into 2024, we're in this together, and collectively, we're going to protect, defend, and save our democracy. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers thanks to your support. Thank you so much for supporting the MeidasTouch Network. If you want to check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, check us out there as well, and have an amazing day.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.